what I expect that each of the esteemed presenters today will tell us more. What are they doing in particular in this area, and will mention particular sources that they see to raise attractiveness of investment in renewable energy. Immediately I want to give the floor to Head of State Agency of Energy Efficiency, Mr. Serhiy Savchuk. Once again, good morning to all of you. According to the title of Section 1, Investment Attractiveness of Renewable Energy Project, I will give you attention a presentation. Colleagues, can you help me with the remote controller how to switch off slides? If it doesn't work, then I will say next slide and you will move it. Colleagues, who will help with the slides? Yeah, now it's working. You changed the battery. Yeah. Colleagues, as regards energy saving and renewable energy, at this slide you see entire balance of energy efficiency and renewable energy in Ukraine. Households consumed most, as well as industry, and Ukraine must focus attention at these two sectors. First of all, unfortunately, even compared with Belarus and Bulgaria and Poland and other neighboring countries, Ukraine has highest energy intensity in European countries. Intensity, not effectiveness. All the measures that we will discuss today, investment in the energy sector, reduction of consumption, must bring us to the indicator that at least will be equal to that of Poland. What we managed to achieve? You know that government getting engaged in this in 2014 when our northern neighbor country cut off gas supply, and then decision was taken to introduce a new stimulating tariff, feed-in tariff that allowed to produce 70 megawatt facilities, 400 million euro investment that produce energy not from gas but from other sources. And this Monday in Slavutic, new boiler house was opened that will replace 7 million cubic meters of gas per year. During two heating sittings, reduction was but 7.2 cubic meters of gas. It's without the territories where hostilities are now taking place in the east and without Crimea. Please move to the next slide because it doesn't work. Colleagues, please switch on next. Slide 4. In 2014 and 2015, the government adopted two national action plans. One with the target 11% of renewables in final energy consumption according to EU directive, a 10% reduction of consumption of energy in the National Action Plan. What has been achieved by now? We have ratified Paris Agreement. Now we have a new strategy until 2035, 25% of renewables. Targets of National Renewable Energy Action Plan till 2020. You can see that all areas, heat production, power generation, heat and cooling, transport, consumption must be reduced, and 20 billion euros should be invested. What we suggest, not only a green fit-in tariff, this tariff was linked to euro in order that investors that invest their own money, Ukrainian or foreign investors investing in renewables, can sell this energy until 2030 and get back the money linked with euro. And bonus was introduced for the use of local Ukrainian equipment, 10%. The law on electricity market development was adopted. We have long-term agreement until 2020 for long-term purchase that removes barriers for sale of electricity previously limited by 1 year. What dynamics is today? In 2015, the law introduced tariff, and we got 4 times more amount of energy. Within 9 months of 2017, 22 megawatts of additional facilities were commissioned, and I think soon it will be 300. Also, in 2014, the law allowed individual private houses, in case they install solar panels, they can sell their energy to the network, thus paying back their investment. You see that the trend is very demonstrative. The growth from quarter to quarter is 44, 45%, 77%, 42%, and now solar panels on the roof. Almost 35 million euro is invested, but we have huge private house market. Swiss companies present here that is planning to build capacities producing solar panels. In order that you could see that renewable sources of energy is not just a slogan, it's not just an idea, you can see real projects implemented. They are working, they are generating electricity, heat energy, and most important thing, that they can pay back the investment. Biogas plant that is producing energy from the chicken manure. Celix Energy Company, they are growing energy plants, and these chips are used for production of energy, used not only in Ukraine but in Poland. We also have a boiler station, 10.5 megawatts in Dnipro, where pellets from shells after production of sunflower oil is used. Now, please take into account what trends exist the world over regarding production of electricity from renewables and from traditional sources. These are data from International Energy. Commissioning of capacities that previously used coal, producing 65 gigawatts, but according to the forecast of International Energy Agency, until 2014, only 17 gigawatts per year of facilities using coal. Introduction of new capacities with renewable energy was growing 2 times faster. 228 gigawatts, equal to 27 nuclear blocks. From 2017 until 2014, every year 160 additional gigawatts will be introduced annually. These are the world trends. Technologies are getting cheaper, and Ukraine must follow this trend because this is dictated by the economy, good reason, and government policy. Next slide shows what to do with such a problem as waste, household waste. Recently, I visited Denmark. We signed an agreement on renewables with them. In Denmark, only in every town there are waste to energy. They produce electricity and heat energy from waste. In Ukraine, it's a huge problem. We have 10 million tons of waste. We don't know what to do with it. There are huge problems with landfills. As a rule, we bring them to the landfills, while in Sweden they buy waste from abroad to produce energy in Sweden. This is our problem, this is our challenge, and I think we shall resolve it. I had already some talks with representatives of IFC, Mr. Penner present here. We shall work on that. There will be new ideology introduced in our legislation. Maybe additional pilot project will be launched in one of the cities that we select to produce energy and heat from waste. So what model of waste processing will be offered to municipality? It's movement for sorting, then sorted waste might go to biogas plant. From biogas plant, gas will be transmitted for production of electricity and heat energy. Then electricity will go to the grid using green tariff, and heat will be using for heating our towns. We modeled such system for Khmelnytsky to process 80,000 tons. 12 billion euros should be invested. Payback period is 6 years. Now we are finalizing this financial model. Plus to that, we get assistance from a Danish, Ukrainian fund and JZ, and I think this waste processing will be moved forward very actively, same as we did with biomass. Now it's time to invest in Ukraine, to invest in energy efficiency and renewables. On the one hand, this is the possibility for our business to pay back the investment. That creates jobs, that makes Ukraine independent. Now Europe is following the way of energy decentralization. I also believe that Ukraine will follow this way of energy decentralization. And I'm glad to invite you to invest in Ukraine, in renewables in Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergei, for such interesting presentation. Please, dear colleagues, prepare Mr. Hilemsky's presentation. As far as I know, Ashad has been investing into renewable energy projects, and today in this room we have your current and maybe potential clients, and we expect to hear interesting information from you. What can you offer to those potential clients and how they should get ready to it? First of all, thank you very much for opportunity to participate in today's event. As a bankers, we have prepared a very short presentation with some important figures, which is better than a million words. These are projects which we already had financed 161 million euros, and with that money, approximately 72 megawatts of solar plants were built and 6 megawatt of biogas capacities. These are those projects which already has been contributing to energy independence of Ukraine. During a row of years, we had no such a portfolio among our projects, but in quite recent time we had revived this projects and work with these projects, and now we have 3 projects. We'll look at biogas, at solar, and at wind projects. These are the projects in our pipeline for the next year. Total capacity 69.8 megawatts with the funding of more than 57 million euros. Actually, we expect to get growth up to 33%. If you look at these figures, I think we have the biggest portfolio among the banks in this country, the biggest portfolio of renewable projects, and we have very ambitious intention to grow. And we have a huge experience in solar energy, in biogas, and one of my colleagues mentioned today the problem with litter and with household management, and we have already financed the project of collecting metals from landfills and reprocessing them and reuse in the economy. We have implemented such projects in Mykolaiv and Kyiv Oblast, and we expect this trend to develop and grow. Thus, we continue to enlarge number of solar projects in the Odessa, Mykolaiv, Kyiv regions. Thinking about biogas, we think that is a big source of big potential in Chernivtsi, in Zaporizhia, and some other regions. We have such projects. We have EBRD limited funding up to 50 million. We have European Investment Bank credit line up to 220 million euros. Also, we have an access to support of the export credit agencies from other countries. This is privileged funding for procurement of equipment. These agencies are like Hermes, Sinasure, SAEE, and our cooperation with international financial institutions is very transparent, is based on good experience of successful cases in the past. Usually we work with big projects, but it does not mean that in case you have a small project, just several megawatts, you cannot approach us and request for funding. We are able to contribute to the projects either from scratch or provide refinancing or provide any other support to you if you need it. We are able to participate in restructuring, in other consultancy advice, etc. Thank you very much. About the quality of projects which you usually experience, I think that today we have rather qualified audience here, and we never expect that the projects in renewable sector, they would be well structured, but we believe that it's not very difficult to restructure them to make it bankable, so to say, to be acceptable to banks. If you come to us with some problem, some issue, we are able to provide a lot of assistance to you, since there is no problem with the sales of this energy. Usually there is big demand for it, and that's why we are able to contribute to each such potential project. We have an access to a big number of advisors, so I can assure you that we can support you with any project with renewables. Dear colleagues, at the end of this panel we have Q&A session, and you will be able to ask your questions. Now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Rodion Morozov from Gazbank, who will present.
Good morning. So, is it functioning? Good morning, dear participants. I'm really pleased to take part in such forum with such interested audience. I shall tell you about activity of Gazbank. Year and a half before, we didn't have environmental portfolio. We didn't have experience of financing complex eco projects connected with renewables. 2 years ago, state-run Gazbank took a decision to focus attention at support of green projects. The owner, Cabinet of Ministers and Minister of Finance supported this idea, and now we are implementing the strategy jointly with IFC. That allowed us to be more confident in our project that we implement, that provided us technical assistance, that defined priorities regarding structuring of the projects. Due to this cooperation, we started operating very actively while credited environmental projects. Now our bank is being transferred into specialized financial institution and eco financing. Why we are in this market? You see this huge potential. Our partners from IFC have calculated that we took very ambitious plan based on Paris Agreement that we signed and association agreement on growth of renewable energy. Market of green financing in Ukraine is huge. In mid-term prospect, it's $10 billion. In long term, until 2035, it equals $35 billion. We are very pleased that more and more other banks are involved in green financing, because one bank alone cannot implement such huge plans that we need in order to achieve commitments on climate change that Ukraine has taken. As regards Gazbank activity, our areas of financing is not only renewable energy, this environmental transport, minimizing harmful emission, modernization of enterprises. It happened so that our biggest focus became renewable energy. I mean electricity sold using green tariff. Look at this slide. These are the agreements that have been financed and supported by our bank. These are all fresh agreements since the time we started working, since May of 2016 that we started working in this area. What is most popular? Solar energy, then heat generation, 276 million, but mainly, as my boss Kirill Shevchenko had said before, this is not only business, this is a big impact on environment, reduction of harmful emission. We made calculations. If coal heat power plants, 100 megawatts, is decommissioned, that is equal to all renewable projects that we finance. Of course, this is only the beginning. You can see what facilities are we financing. Most of them solar projects. We have very big projects in wind energy. The biggest project on wind energy is in Kherson region, and we are very proud of it. And we shall continue financing it and supporting it. We have biomass project, we have small hydro stations projects. We have already experienced how to finance all these types of projects. IFC partners have transferred this experience to our manager, and in our future projects we shall use it more effectively and quickly. These are our plans for the nearest future. Most popular is solar energy, solar station. It's the fastest to implement, easier to enter market. But I think that both biogas project and biogas and biomass and wind projects will develop as well, because future belongs to big projects, big generation projects. And we can see it already. These are the projects that will be discussed quite soon. If we look at the prospects until 2018, there are very many big projects on wind energy with foreign investors that come to Ukraine. They believe that Ukraine is a country that causes confidence, and this is a guarantee of reliable implementation and support of the projects. What are our competitive advantages? When talking about renewables, thanks to the fact that our tariff is linked to euro, we can provide interest in euro, crediting in euro with low interest. We understand that renewable energy requires long money, long-term credited. Therefore, we try to meet clients' need. We understand that the client doesn't want to work for 4 years, repaying the credit. They want to have longer term, 7-year credit, to start earning money and repaying credit. So getting some money from first year of generation. All renewable energy projects are priority projects for us. We have special system of motivation of the staff for pipelining of energy projects. Such projects are priority number 1 in our bank. Plus to that, prompt decision making. We have already experience of the specialist. It's not something new or some unknown complicated process. At the beginning, all the things were new. Now we can give advice to our client how to improve the project, achieving higher indicators. How can you get credit? There are 2 options for crediting. Either financing of investment expenditures. Talking about refinancing, we can start working with a client who wants to ask for refinancing from our bank. From the very beginning of project implementation, we can sign a suspension agreement. What are the triggers for us? Signing an agreement on sale of energy. After that, almost starting next day, they can get refinancing of expenses for construction of the station. or crediting for construction. You use some non-profile asset as additional collateral, but as soon as the station is commissioned, it is the only collateral. No additional assurances are not needed. Since that time, the station built by investor is the only security for our credit. And what else is provided to client for free? Feasibility study. If it's something very complicated, this is done by IFC experts. If it is the project that we have experience based on IFC methodology, our specialists from technical department can do it themselves. What are additional advantages? Starting from 15th of September, Ukrbazbank has joined the global system of trade financing of IFC. That simplifies for our clients payment for imported equipment, because mainly in renewable energy equipment is foreign. For wind energy, such equipment is quite costly. It's necessary to purchase turbines and parts of wind generator. Bank can put direct guarantee to the producer of foreign equipment that will taken as the guarantee based on rating IFC. Instead of complicated procedure of letter of credit issuance, that simplifies the procedure for our clients very much. I have already mentioned that we can conclude so-called binding offer. The client can build the station, being sure that as soon as it is commissioned, he will get the funding. And a few practical hints. I shall give you example of a project. Wind generation in Kherson region that we finance. You can see the time, how quickly all that is done since the time that they apply and decision is taken. This is Windcraft company that already commissioned the first part. This is one of the biggest project on wind generation with Swedish investment. This is the solar station, a small project. I want to emphasize, for us it doesn't matter is it a small or medium business project or big corporation project. All projects are priority. We review them as priority projects. Another project where we refinanced costs of the client who has built the station already. He didn't know about possibility of credit, and then he asked our bank for money and he got refinancing very quickly. Small hydro station, reconstruction of the old hydro station built back in Soviet times. It is a small, medium-sized business, low capacity project, but still repayment is very quick if they do it proper way. And we know how to do it proper way because we have the expertise. Summarizing all that, I can conclude that in the course of 2016 and 2017, we were leaders in refinancing of green energy facilities. Every 4th megawatts produced was financed by Ukrbazbank, as head of board said. And many clients do not apply for bank credit program. We had an experimental program. We first in Ukraine started financing roof station for private persons, for private houses. It's not the topic of our conference, but this was a very good project. We must foster our clients because green ideas start from private house and then they switch to bigger project. When they try it with their private house, with their private roof, then they make calculations, they see that they pay less bills for energy, and then there are other opportunities. So such projects remain our priority. We invite you to cooperation. Always glad to cooperate with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rodiona. Thank you for interesting presentation. We wish you a lot of success in turning into really environmental bank. And now I'm happy to give the floor to Mr. Sergei Maslechenko, EBRD, who Mr. Maslechenko has been presenting as one of the big investors to Ukrainian economy. Good afternoon, dear friends. I'm happy to see a lot of faces, and I've been listening to a lot of positive things, but probably I will mention some maybe negative things. I will present today not just the projects which we fulfill in Ukraine, but also I will share with our plans for the future. Looking at the sustainable energy sector, we can assure that we have contributed 12 billion euros into sustainable energy directly, and even more to the corporate banks. And here you see that up to 20% more than 400 million euros or 12 billion hryvnia were invested into renewable energy. We see four strategic areas in development of renewable energy. Probably many of you know that we are in this market, in sustainable energy market, from 2008 in Ukraine, and NERC at that time devoted much attention to this area. USEF program was in existence at that time. Now it is not so active, but still it was. And at that time we wanted to demonstrate that it was possible to invest to these projects. At that time, not so many international banks were eager to invest into the renewables, and we attracted international donors, reviewed more than 70 different projects, provided a lot of consultancy, and in result of all that work, we had signed agreements about 11 projects, for solar to wind to small hydro, biogas, biomass, etc. What next? The green tariff privileged period has almost extended. It is planned for 2020, and today we have to offer something to the investors instead. And many pieces of secondary legislation should be improved or reviewed. And now we are thinking about what will happen in the renewable energy in some 18-24 months. Both the government and the banks have to rethink the current model, have to offer something new to investors for the next period after green tariff is expired. Of course, green energy projects are becoming more popular, but all the case studies, all the experience of green energy projects in post-Soviet countries, in former Soviet Union countries, suggest that there are many specificities. For example, the case of Armenia for the last 3 years raised a lot of questions. The idea of bioenergy auctions in Ukraine, which is now under discussion, it is also its future is not clear as of now. So I believe that taxation of CO2 emissions would give rise to the projects, and they even will compete for the market in future. And our role, or better to say the government's role, will be to allow this market to develop, while the business itself will take care about future projects in green energy. Then biomass and biogas projects in municipal sector. This is a huge area with huge potential. We studied the opportunities here and found that more than 20 million of fuel in oil equivalent is available. This is comparative to the whole consumption of Bulgaria or Hungary, while Ukraine now uses a huge amounts of fuels for heating in household sector, and we have interesting projects in many regional centers. We have the projects which are already in the stage of implementation, and we have some too in pipeline. So the issue of heating in municipal energy sector is very promising, but here huge core of legislation should be changed or developed. This includes reforming of subsidies, monetization of subsidies, and unfortunately not much is done as of the moment in this aspect. As far as I know, private business contributes to development of individual boiler houses, for example, but these all are still pilot projects. To transfer from pilot projects to systemic regular projects, we need to make a decisive step. I would like to point out to this picture. This is very nice picture. Eco Optima company. This is a project in Stara-Samber district in Lviv region. This is a wind farm. And recently in Volnovakha we launched Biomass energy project. And unfortunately, due to the delays caused by NERC and especially in the area of green tariff decision. Unfortunately, investors, due to that delays with NERC work, they cannot get their revenues, their income. This reminds me that expected radical changes in the green tariff area, which frightened and deterred all the investors. Unfortunately, this is very negative impact, and we should stop it now and prevent from happening in future. So I will continue about biomass and biogas. This is a very dynamic sector. The use of biomass or biogas in the agricultural sector, you see the newly implemented project. We are very happy with cooperation with Astarta Kiev company. We have already signed agreements about 6 more such projects. You might know the first biogas plant was funded by our bank. Also, Mironevsky Хлібопродукт is now contributing to such a project about biogas. Besides that, 6 projects with biogas, which I already mentioned, some 9 more we have in our pipeline in the bank. There's now an outburst of this project, and this suggests that the use of biofuels is more popular than even solar or wind energy, because there is really big potential here, and we should realize this potential. So our assistance would be in support to the market of biofuels and participation in the development of biomass supply value chain. Unfortunately, biomass today remains in the fields and it is not used in full scope. Only some 15 or 20% goes to processing as a fuel. So our role is to allow agro companies to understand the opportunities of biofuels, and we are scheduled a number of workshops, round tables. Then we are ready to assist in preparation of projects with biomass and related to logistics of biomass supply to biomass plants. We are currently involving privileged funding for this, and we hope this market will become rather successful. So summing up, I would like to say that renewable sector, renewable energy sector is very attractive for investors. Quite a lot of them come to us and express their willingness to work here, but they need to understand what will happen to the green tariff in Ukraine, how it will be coordinated to the exchange rate. But nevertheless, the future of Ukraine renewable energy will be closely interrelated with decentralization, with employment, with local employment, with the creation of jobs, with the efficient use of biomass fuels, and I believe that we will take this as strategic direction for our work here in Ukraine. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your attention to biofuel. That's very important for Ukraine. And special thanks for paying attention to existing problem, the regrettable situation, the regulation, and the need to change energy market quickly, not to hamper it. I want to give the floor to Alexei Parkomchuk, Danish investment fund. It's very interesting to hear about your project and your opinion. Thank you very much for the invitation, for the possibility to speak. As Cyril said, I work in the Eform Danish investment fund. That means, in translation, investment fund for developing country. In particular, Ukraine is one of developing countries, which is very good. This is a Danish state fund. Our main and only investor is a Danish state. 2.5 billion euro investment, but we work in many countries and therefore portfolio in Ukraine is much less. It's for all countries, but we hope that this portfolio will grow. Eform is a fund that is functioning on commercial basis, although it's state fund. And we allow participation in capital. We use commercial rates, sometimes regrettably. We just look what is the market in each particular country and what are commercial financing rates typical for that market. I want to remind you that United Nations organization some 2 years ago did important thing which became important for EFU financial officer. They show us this picture quite often. 17 sustainable development goals, and we must abide by these goals in our investment projects that we finance. You don't see fighting corruption, although it is hidden in some other goals. We are in Ukraine since 1999, financed 51 projects in different sectors. First of all, in agriculture, in IT, in metal processing, wood processing. In the course of recent 2 or 3 years, we look very actively at renewable sector. The scheme is quite simple, at least visually. We work in the projects where Danish technology is engaged, the Danish economic interest, or financing from colleagues from either financial institutions that are financing development, like EBRD, like our sister organization Holland at FMO, the AG in Germany, the NEFCO, Northern Environmental Corporation. We have a wind park in Ukraine. Vestas, a supplier of technology of turbines. There is Ukrainian bank ready to provide crediting for this project. There is Ukrainian developer or sponsor who is willing and who has possibility to implement this project. Probably there could be financing from other financial institute of development, like European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. And we could provide additional capital through providing capital or through providing additional credit, or the mix of these financial instruments. Up to now, in our portfolio is only one project on renewable energy, Carpatsky Wind. Sergei has mentioned this project financed jointly with European Bank and NEFCO. We took part in the second stage of this project, consisting of 6 turbines Vescos, 3.5 megawatts each turbine. Project built very quickly, within 1 year. 1 year passed since financial documents were signed until commissioning of the station. Project is working, supplying energy. The second stage, 6 turbines, are supplying energy to the grid based on green tariff. For us, the trigger in this project, a motivating factor, was the fact that Vestas technology is used. Vestas will maintain these turbines and service them in the next minimum 6 years. EBRD and NEFCO co-financed it. Now we are considering 2 solar energy projects, 30 megawatts electricity each in central and western Ukraine. We work with very experienced Ukrainian developers of such projects, and we hope that these projects will be built very quickly, 1 year maximum, and by the end of next year they will be commissioned and acquire green tariff. Both projects are co-financed by EBRD and NEFCO. We are dealing with the partners with whom we have previous experience of working together, and these projects are advancing very quickly. As regards problems, challenges, or difficulties that we face, well, compared with agriculture or other sectors of economy, energy is the most transparent and most reformed sector. For us, as a foreign investor, it is the most easy, the most interesting, most understandable how to work in this field. But still, some problems remain. They come to surface during due diligence, land allocation issue, purpose of the land. These are the challenges. There are problems, lack of available equity financing. You must look for additional equity, additional resources. A big question is who is the local partner, especially for such institutes as Eform. Danish and European public looks at us with great attention. You know that in Europe now a new wave of questions from community to corporation to state institution. Where do you keep your money? In offshores or tax havens? Very serious documentaries were shown in Germany and in Denmark regarding Paradise Papers. They look attentively with whom we are cooperating, who is Ukrainian investor, where from comes money, where they pay taxes, how they pay taxes. They are very important issues. Nobody from big financial organization don't want to run reputation risks. There is a very serious question. And question that was mentioned here already. To what extent high green tariffs for green energy, whether they could be sustainable until 2029, whether Ukraine will stand it, or market, or consumers, and who will be the final beneficiary. From the point of view of paying this tariff, will Ukraine not be tempted to look at the experience of Poland or Spain, who reduced their commitments, their plans regarding renewable energy and energy efficiency? To what extent Ukrainian judicial system is ready to protect rights of investors, rights of owners of assets? Questions are numerous, we face them regularly, but nevertheless, our portfolio in Ukraine is growing. There are many interesting projects, as Danish ambassador was mentioned today. Yesterday, Danish government made a decision regarding additional financing of projects in Ukraine and Georgia, but the lion's share of this financing will be focused at Ukraine. This money is additional. 130 million of Danish crowns is not a big amount of money, but this is in addition to financing programs that we have now. The operator of this fund will be Eform. We shall manage these funds, and money for Ukrainian projects are available. We have shortage of quality project, well-structured project, and clearly developed project. We also have grant money to support the project that are of interest to us, that we are ready to finance, to support them at the stage of elaboration. Our team is not big, in fact, but we will be very glad to hear your proposal, to communicate with you, to find the projects that are worth financing. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Alexei, for your interesting presentation. It's good that we are paying details to take into account details. Land allocation for your project. I see that you are well aware. And especially glad to hear that you feel comfortable in the Ukrainian energy sector. Not everyone.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to invite Ms. Yulia Usenko. Please inform us about your map, and we would like to see the progress with it. Thank you very much for this warm introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm happy to welcome you at this annual business forum. Today, I would like to present to you a UMAP project. I will describe who are supporters of this project and how you can work with it. In general, about the project, UMAP is an open access informative web resource that accumulates information about potential and implemented projects in two areas: renewable energy projects and green energy projects. And why we are doing this? All the previous speakers mentioned about funding of the projects. They are searching for such projects who might become the objects of funding. So our map is designed to offer tools for those who are wishing to implement this project. I would like to describe our partners first. This project was initiated by civil society organization, the Agency of Sustainable Development. Then our big supporter from public sector had become State Energy Efficiency Fund. Then we had gained support from GIZ, and actually our supporters from GIZ allows us initially develop this UMAP. Now we are very grateful to the Danish financial agency, which provides support in to attraction of investments to Ukraine via this interactive map. Also, we are grateful to Ukrainian professional associations, which provide us with data reflected on our map, and also our companies from Denmark, which provide expert assistance. Who are the target audience? Who are potential beneficiaries of our website? These are initiators and developers of EE and RE projects, and they can independently put their projects on our website free of charge. These are also investors who have an interest in investing in EE and RE projects. Actually, thus, UAMAP is a platform providing communication between the initiators and developers and investors to such projects. Here you see the project map. Brown color shows the splits between types of energy. You may find successful cases, and to see how the investment projects are working successfully in Ukraine. The yellow color points out to those projects which are offered for investments. These are projects up to 2 billion euros. How we usually work with projects. What assistance we can offer to them. So jointly with the Energy Efficiency Agency, we double-check these projects, establish contacts with them, discuss what could be added for better presentation of the project on our map, and then we decide for what investor this project can be interesting. Also, users can choose from a variety of methods how to find available land plots for the projects. This is absolutely open and accessible information. Here you see potential land plots which are allocated for industrial objects. These are energy substations available for modernization or improvement in order to be connected for the main grid. This is how the web page with the potential project looks like. Here you see brief information on the project, description what has already been done with this project, and there is also a link to all the permits issued for the project, allocation of land plots, etc. This is a presentation of successful story on our map, and today you can even watch videos from some projects. Actually, we are very proud of this option, and this allows to attract more investors, obviously. And now about our plans for the future. As of today, this project is supported by Danish Energy Agency, and we continue our work, and very soon this will be UMAP version 2.0. It will allow to choose a category of projects depending on the type of energy source on the home page. For example, if you wish to choose bioenergy projects, you simply click on it and that's it. As for the rest of information, additional to land plots, etc., we will also describe available resources. In the lower picture, you can see a split of the projects by the regions. We also will allow scaling of each region on this map to see the projects on the map in a rather big scale. Also, we will split by the amount of investments required for each project. Mr. Savchuk mentioned about waste processing and waste treatment, and very soon I hope that we will offer separate search for such projects. Much was mentioned today about improvement of investment climate and the attraction of projects. So we decided to add project facilitation web page on our map. on our map. And here you can find a brochure describing step-by-step project implementation for each type of renewable energy. And this brochure would allow you to function successfully both in current model of energy market, and in some year we will add new brochure instruction how to act step by step in the new energy market. If a moderator allows me to show you the website, unfortunately we do not have time. The modernized website, updated website, will become operational from January next year, and I wish you good work today.
Thank you, Julia. I'm glad to hear that you're developing very actively. This is very important for us. Allow me to invite our last speaker, Carsten Glenting, Head of Strategy, Finance and Economics.
Thank you very much.
Дуже дякую.
Можемо допомогти з презентацією?
Can you help with the slides?
Perfect, thanks. So, thank you very much. As mentioned, we work for the Danish-Ukrainian Corporation, and we've been working closely with Julia and the state agency on preparation of the UAMAP platform version 2. So, what is needed for a successful funding of a renewable energy project? I think three things are needed. First of all, a funding source, somebody who's willing to provide long-term funds for the investment. Secondly, they need a project. They need a project that is sufficiently well documented for them to be able to assess what are the risks and rewards of this project. And even to get them interested in the dialogue, there has to be a reasonable level of documentation of the project concept. And finally, you need stable framework conditions. Ukraine has moved long in the last years. A lot of reforms have been implemented in the energy market, and many important steps have been taken. But also, as mentioned by both the EBRD and the IFU, there are still some concerns as to the long-term viability of the green tariff and as to some of the governance issues in the sector. Nevertheless, a lot of the framework conditions are in place now. So I will now focus on the other two aspects. How do you get the projects well documented, and where does the funding come from? Now, in the new revised UAMAP 2.0, there is a investment project template. This project template has been designed as a format for presenting Ukrainian energy efficiency and renewable energy projects to international investors. We have tried to balance, on the one side, the needs of international investors who would always like more and more detailed information, and on the other side, what is a reasonable level of initial information to be provided by a project developer. We have structured this into a standard, so the intent is that in the future all projects will be presented in a reasonably similar context. And that the people who review the projects, for instance international investors seeking investment opportunities, will be able to select a number of criteria, say I am an investor in wind projects in Western Ukraine and I only invest in projects above a certain size. And then I have easy access to standardized information on the investment opportunities available in Ukraine in this area. Ideally, we would also like to have initial indications of the potential financial viability of the projects included in this material. And we also provide project developers the opportunity to link to additional information. Maybe they have feasibility studies, maybe they have pictures or maps of the site, etc. Now, we have talked to some of the international investors active in Ukraine, including the IFU, on what is the minimum information you need to make a serious assessment and start discussion. And based on that, we have divided the project template in a number of mandatory fields that you really should fill out to make international investors interested. These are things like, obviously, the project type. Is this a wind or a solar project? The title of the investment project, who is responsible for the project, contact details, but also things about what is the project state of development. Is this an idea, or do you have a feasibility study? Are you ready to build? Or is it an existing project that you want to refinance or want to extend? Obviously also the location of a project, and then things about what you think the total investment will be. Many international investors have a minimum size or a maximum size, or both, for the investments they're looking at. What are the income sources? Will this be by the green tariff? Will it be by heat sale to the district heating network? Do you think you will get some subsidies? Do you have other kinds of incomes? And what is the total capacity, electricity produced and sold, and also if it's a heat or a combined heat and power project, how much heat will you produce? And to the extent that you know it, what will the power and heat prices be, and what expected financial return can that give you? These are the basic information that most international investors will be seeking. Depending on the development stage of your project, you may have additional information that is interesting and relevant. And the new template also gives you opportunities to provide information on what are the available documents, what is the expected time frame for the project, and you can link to feasibility studies and pictures and videos and other material. So that briefly is the new investment project template, and that will be available in an easy-to-use format in the new UA Map 2.0 when launched, hopefully soon. Julia, I'm looking at you. Now, secondly, apart from a well-documented project, you need somebody to finance it. I'm so pleased to hear today from Orchard Bank and from Ukra Bank that there are very active commercial banks here who are cooperating close with some of the international financial institutions. And I'm quite impressed also by the project decision process described. It is relatively short, so it's efficient. However, it is unlikely that there will be sufficient money available from domestic Ukrainian sources to realize the substantial potential for renewable energy and energy efficiency in Ukraine. And therefore, you will need to supplement with international funds. In the UA Map 2.0, we provide a detailed overview of various financial institutions that are active in Ukraine. And in general, you can categorize them in 4 categories. There are the multilateral development banks, as represented by the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development here on the podium. There are national development institutions, as represented by IFU here on the podium. Then there are the export credit agencies. These are the agencies that provide exporters of equipment and technology with risk coverage linked to their financing. As you will see in a minute, they are actually less active here than the other actors at present moment and have a different perception of the risk of Ukraine. Then there are private investment funds that are dedicated to renewable energy and energy efficiency and who work in Poland or Hungary or France and in principle in Ukraine. Unfortunately, right now, there are relatively few funds that are active in Ukraine, and the investments they have are not very recent. Again, it reflects that people have maybe not completely understood what is happening in the energy market here, how far you have gone on reform in the last couple of years. And finally, of course, very importantly, there are the Ukrainian government and private sector actors. There is the state agency that's providing facilitation and helping the market develop. And then there are the Ukrainian commercial banks, as represented here on the podium also. I should maybe say that, in general, if you seek international funding, you will at some point be met with requirements for compliance with the international institutions' internal guidelines on environmental, social, and governance standards. That was also mentioned by the IFU earlier. This is just a small picture of what will be much more detailed in the UA Map 2.0. But we're trying to give an overview of who are the different actors active in Ukraine currently. All the major development financing institutions are active here, and as EBRD also mentioned, a number of the things they have funded. Similarly, many of the national development financing institutions are active here, and you mentioned the project financing of the wind project in Carpathia. Most of the others have actually not been very active yet in the renewable energy and energy efficiency area, but I'm sure that they will start working here in the coming years. Then we come to the export credit agencies. For foreign equipment and technology suppliers, they are an important partner. It seems like the export credit agencies are more conservative or less optimistic, or have not really followed what has happened in Ukraine the last couple of years, because all of them have a relatively restrictive approach to Ukraine. Interestingly, it's the same with Argentina. It appears that when countries have been through a turbulent period, but has recovered fast and have implemented many reforms, export credit agencies tend to be a bit slow to move and realize this. We're trying to facilitate them to move in the right direction, and hopefully this will happen. And then to the slide where I had wished there were more lines. These are at least what I could find of dedicated renewable energy and energy efficiency investment funds that provide equity financing for renewable energy and are active in Ukraine. Too few. It's not because there's not a lot of them on the world market, but they haven't discovered Ukraine yet. Hopefully this will happen in the near future. And finally, this is a slide which is clearly not updated, because I missed most of the really interesting projects described by Ukregasbank and Ochat Bank. There is so much happening in the domestic financial sector here. So it's an important partner for any project development. So finally, on the perspectives. The multilateral and bilateral development financing institutions are very active here, both in energy efficiency and renewable energy. The export credit agencies and the private investment funds have not really discovered yet what is happening in the energy sector here, and they are missing out on opportunities. Luckily, those opportunities are taken up by the Ukrainian commercial banks. We think Ukraine has taken very important steps in reforming the energy market, and although some issues are still outstanding, there are definitely a lot of opportunities, and the risk has been reduced over the last few years. There are substantial opportunities in renewable energy and in energy efficiency in Ukraine, as also described earlier today from many of the other presenters. And we think that the UA map revised version 2.0 will be able to facilitate bringing together funding sources and investors. But a key thing to do this is to make sure that there are well-documented investment opportunities being presented through it. So we can only encourage you, when the new UA map is up and running, to visit it and to market your investment opportunities through it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carsten. Assistance that Denmark in general provides to Ukraine. Thank you very much. It is really important. Друзі, я обіцяв нас.
Dear friends, I promised that at the end of our panel we would have a Q&A session, but unfortunately we ran out of time, and I offered to ask and answer questions in the during coffee time.